Welcome on board Europe's incredible underwater high-speed train, the iconic Eurostar, connecting Amsterdam, Brussels and Paris with London through the impressive Channel Tunnel. Join me today for a ride on board this legendary high-speed train service in Eurostar Plus as we travel non-stop from Paris to London. Along the way, I'll show you the train's many great onboard features, including the complimentary breakfast service, the comfortable seats, and why, despite Eurostar on the surface being great, I'm left feeling slightly disappointed. Our journey begins on this early May morning at Paris Gare du Nord station, one of the French capital's roughly 7 major long-distance railway stations. The station first opened all the way back in 1846, and since then it's been through several rebuilds and expansions, including the arrival of the Eurostar in 1994. Today, Gare du Nord is one of the busiest railway stations in Europe, and by some metrics, it's actually the busiest of them all. The station is served by several Paris Metro and RER lines, as well as a couple of regional trains. The station also sees several high-speed trains, including international ones to Belgium, Germany and the Netherlands. These services are operated by what was formerly known as Thalys, now also operating under the Eurostar brand. But today we are catching the original Eurostar, the one to the United Kingdom. And because the United Kingdom is not part of Schengen and also no longer part of the EU, these trains depart from a separate international area of the station. So make sure to arrive with plenty of time, as you will need to go through passport and security control, which closes around 30 to 15 minutes before departure. Once you're on the other side of the checks, you are dumped into this waiting lounge area. There is a few seats here, as well as a few shops, but honestly it's a lot like a small airport, where you just have to sit around and wait for your train to start boarding. Today, we are on board the 7:42 train to London, which started boarding around 25 minutes before departure. Our train today uses one of Eurostar's 400-meter long Siemens Velaro trains, which entered service in 2015 and are capable of 320 km per hour. Right, let's get on board and check out this sleek-looking high-speed train. Today, I'll be traveling in Eurostar Plus, which is basically first class, but I'll get back to that later. For now, it's time to get on board and find our seat, which for me today is number 31, a forward-facing solo seat. However, just before departure, the first class host came around and informed us that we would just be 4 people in the carriage today, and invited everyone to just sit wherever they would like. So, I swapped to this empty table for 2 instead. It was a bit strange being on board one of the most popular and prestigious high-speed trains in the world, and for it to be so empty. And with our host not having many passengers to look after, he actually managed to serve the complimentary breakfast before we departed Paris. We'll get back to breakfast after departure, but for now we're departing Paris Gare du Nord on time at 07:42, beginning our journey over to London. We head out of Paris in the beautiful morning light, making our way past the train depot in Saint-Denis, where Eurostar and TGV trains go to sleep. Our journey initially takes us along the busy suburban railways of Paris, where in the meantime I enjoyed the complimentary breakfast, which was just a plain croissant as well as some yogurt with jam alongside a choice of beverages. I really like this being served on proper tableware. It just elevates the experience even if the food itself isn't that substantial. We have just joined the LGV Nord high-speed railway line, which will take us all the way up to the Channel Tunnel via Lille at speeds up to 300 km per hour. So now, let's take a closer look at the route map for today's journey. We are catching train 9009, which leaves from Paris heading north up to the Channel Tunnel with no intermediate stops on its way to London. Journey time is scheduled to be 2 hours and 18 minutes, covering a distance of 491 kilometers, landing the train an average speed of 214 kilometers per hour. And now, with the small breakfast service over, let's turn our attention to the seats here in Eurostar Plus. I really like the brown and beige alternating color scheme, but unfortunately some of the beige seats were already starting to look very dirty, at least on my trip. Anyway, the seats themselves feature a slightly winged headrest with a soft cushion, a supportive ergonomic back design with the base also featuring a good amount of padding. And if you're tall, make sure to extend the thigh support, which is not a common feature on train seats. The seats also offer a bit of recline for a better relaxation position, but if you need to get some work done, there's a large table or tray table at every seat. I found the tray table to be very sturdy actually, and there's a storage pocket too. The airline style seats are also equipped with a small cup holder, as well as a footrest. There's good legroom and a storage pocket too. Also check out the small vanity mirror so you can check that you look good before your appointment in London. Finally, there's also USB and power sockets at every seat, alternating between European and UK style plugs. Overall, it's a great seat for these 2 to 4 hour hops Eurostar trains currently do. After around 1 hour on the high-speed line, our train is now slowing down as we approach the major city of Lille. While Eurostar does stop a couple of trains here, it is mostly the services to and from Brussels and Amsterdam, with our service today just running through without stopping. And as our train gets on the other side of Lille, we can get back up to speed as we head towards the Channel Tunnel. One thing that did surprise me about the Eurostar Velaro train is that the ride quality was surprisingly average. Like all the other Velaro models I've tried have exceptionally good ride quality, and this one just didn't. I wonder if it could have something to do with the weight, as we were only 4 people in my carriage, or maybe this particular train was just soon due in for wheel reprofiling. Anyway, speaking of the train, let me show you around it. So Eurostar offers 3 classes on board. Plus and Premier use the same first class style seating in a 2+1 layout, but Premier comes with a more substantial meal service, lounge access and increased flexibility. However, Premier is usually very expensive and aimed at business travelers, so unless your company is paying, I'd stick with Plus. The cheapest seat on board is Standard, which comes in a 2+2 layout, mostly with airline style seating, but there are also a few seats around the table. The seats in Standard are in a blue color and largely similar to the ones in Plus and Premier, but of course a bit tighter thanks to the 2+2 layout. They are also fitted with tray tables, as well as good legroom, a footrest, and there's power outlets too, once again alternating between European and UK style. Throughout the train, you'll find plenty of space to store your luggage, and there's also 2 cafes on board the train, selling snacks, light bites, and a selection of hot and cold drinks. There's also a dedicated accessibility area on board the train, but as the train is high floor, you will need to book assistance to have the ramps deployed. And finally, let's check out the onboard toilets. The toilet was looking clean and had working water from this interesting looking water fountain design. There was also a working hand dryer, and overall the entire toilet was clean, well stocked with paper and functional, so thumbs up. And after our very fast journey on the French high-speed railway network, we are now slowing down for the landmark of today's journey, the Eurotunnel. And just before we enter the tunnel, we see the terminal for the Lille shuttle trains, which carries cars and trucks through the tunnel using specifically designed trains for just this purpose. And sure enough, shortly afterwards we enter the channel or Eurotunnel, which is actually the 3rd longest railway tunnel anywhere in the world. And it has the longest underwater section of any tunnel anywhere in the world. The entire tunnel is 50 kilometers long, with around 38 of them being underwater, taking our train roughly 20 minutes to travel through. As a kid, I always imagined there would be fish swimming around outside of the window, which would also make this footage look a lot more interesting. And around 20 minutes later, we appear on the other side of the tunnel, having successfully crossed under the channel. Now it's time for our train to accelerate back up to high speed, as we'll now travel on the only true dedicated high-speed railway line in the United Kingdom, the creatively named High Speed 1 to London, which will once again allow our train to reach 300 km per hour. I should also mention that the train is meant to have free onboard Wi-Fi, but I couldn't get it to work despite the portal loading. And with our journey now speeding to an end, I also have to talk about the one major thing that let Eurostar down: the aggressive pricing. For this trip, I was traveling with a first class Interrail pass, so I had to pay the very steep reservation fee of 40 euros. And to make things worse, these reservations are limited in quantity, so on busy travel days, well, you're out of luck. And the normal fares? Don't even get me started. Despite there being plenty of empty seats on this train, Eurostar was charging a minimum of 248 euros for a standard class ticket. I'm guessing they were doing this because I was traveling on a holiday weekend. But to me it is frankly unacceptable that instead of filling those empty seats, Eurostar would rather try to squeeze 1 or 2 people for 250 euros instead of selling them for a reasonable price. And that is probably why there's still so many low-cost flights between London and Paris, despite the train both being faster and objectively the better way of getting between those two cities. That's why I honestly cannot wait for competition to arrive on this route. I've said it time and time again on this channel, but Eurostar is nothing but a shitty, stagnant monopoly. But thankfully, now serious progress is being made both by Virgin Trains and also Trenitalia to get competing services running. Of course, Eurostar is already trying to keep the competitors out, including making silly arguments like, oh, our new Alstom double-decker trains will all need to be maintained in London, so there's no space to park competitor trains in London, when they are obviously going to use the new trains mostly on former Thalys routes on the continent. So now, as we begin our approach into London St. Pancras International Station, I think the best way I can sum up Eurostar is that the trains themselves are great, and when you get a reasonably priced ticket, there's really nothing beating it. But far too often I look at catching Eurostar, see they want extortionate money for it, and then I simply end up picking another option, which is such a shame for an otherwise great railway. In the end, our train pulls into London St. Pancras International Station on time at 9 AM, after what's ultimately been a comfortable and uneventful journey with Eurostar. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe to the channel as I try to post a new one every Sunday. And if you want to give the channel a little extra support, consider joining the membership program to get early access to all my videos and exclusive travel updates. And if you want to see a first class high-speed train experience for 28 euros instead of Eurostar's 250, watch my video on Italy's incredible Italo high-speed train by clicking the card on screen now. Thanks for watching.